what is your name and tattooing name if you have one?
Tattoo name is Morbid Mark Dalton. Everybody just calls me Morbid Mark, but yeah.
Morbid Mark. And how did we come into that?
Into the name? So many years ago, we had started this shop. I was just an apprentice, and my original mentors had started a shop called Area 51, and it was down in Colorado Springs. And you know, tattoo shops have a lot of conversations very similar to like a mechanic shop. There's no filter between our brains and our mouths. So there was a conversation going, and I don't remember the entire context of the conversation, but it was something to do with anal fisting and duct tape. And a client had walked in, or a potential client had walked in and listened to this whole rant that I went off. And then like we noticed her, and she was like, "You're morbid," and like stomped out of the shop. And so all the guys sitting around were like, "Morbid Mark, Morbid Mark." That fits. And I hadn't even been tattooing professionally for like a year yet. So that one kind of stuck with me throughout the years.
You got named pretty quick then.
Yes, I did.
So was that big in the industry? Did you feel like you were like that newbie coming up, like, I already have my name?
I was very proud of the name at the time. Like I was very happy with it.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. I love how so many communities will find an alias or a character for yourself, and like you play that person the whole time.
And see, I think as the industry has matured and we've come into kind of a new age of tattooing, that's something that's kind of been lost in context. You see a few guys with nicknames here and there, but not as much. Like everybody had a nickname back in the day. Very few artists like you knew just like by their first name and their last name. You know, you didn't really know them as like, you know, oh, this is Harold. You know, like oh this is. You know, this is we call him Harry, or you know, Hairbuck, or whatever the context would be.
That's really cool, and it's very interesting that you say that, because I feel like today's generation, with the way things are going, they're so hard pressed into being the best and not necessarily who they are as the person becoming the best.
Right.
So where are you from originally? Are you from the Springs?
That's a loaded question too. So I was born in Washington State. I didn't even live there to be like a year old or so. My mother had remarried, and both of my parents were in the military, if I remember correctly. And I spent quite a lot of time in Fairbanks, Alaska. And I think they retired out of Fort Carson down in Colorado Springs when I was like 10. So I've been here for a long time, from a pretty young age. But yeah, I was a military brat growing up, so I spent time in fucking Alaska. And then yeah, just kind of settled here. After I turned 18 and started doing my own thing, my whole family packed back up and everybody moved back to Washington. I got one brother left in Greeley, but for the most part, yeah, I'm the only one still here. I go out there and visit once in a while, but yeah, this is my home.
So did you happen to discover tattooing over in Alaska, or did that happen over
No, I was way too young. I've always been an artist. I always kind of grew up with the art angle. And tattooing was actually my mother's idea. Like, don't get me wrong, I started out in her kitchen when I was 13 years old with a sewing needle, like fucking myself up, fucking all my friends up. And I really wasn't going anywhere in life. Like my biggest ambitions were like smoking weed and doing dumb shit. And my mom was like, okay, I don't care what you do with your life, but you gotta do something. You already fuck around on all your friends. Why don't you actually take it to the next level, pursue it as a profession? So when I was 17, I got myself an apprenticeship. A guy that I had read articles on in a local magazine. I think, if I remember correctly, it was called Ink Pit Magazine, and that was local out of Colorado Springs, if I remember correctly. Somebody might correct me on that. But yeah, it was like a local metal shop that also had a magazine, and the tattoo shop was Off the Wall 5, and it was right next door to the Ink Pit, which was this metal shop that sold like metal merchandise and shirts and all kinds of stuff, and they featured him in one of their magazines. I read that sitting in a coffee shop, and I had tried to get an apprenticeship. I had talked to other artists, and they all shut me down. It was back in the day, like when I first started tattooing, It was early 2000 when I started getting into the professional world of it. I can remember there was like 5 or 6 shops in town, like, and nobody wanted to apprentice anybody. And I understand that now, because nobody wants to follow somebody around the shop all day and unfuck everything they touch. So, but I read this article. I wrote him a letter, like a snail mail letter, handwritten letter, and mailed it to him. And he got the letter, read through the letter and all my ambitions and everything that I wanted. I really poured my heart and soul into this letter. And he called me immediately. And he was like, get your ass down here. We'll figure it out. We'll get you trained. Like, if this is what you want to do with your life, just know, like, it's going to be hectic. It's going to be crazy. It'll be, you know, the next best thing to being a rock star. But there's a lot of shit you don't see about being a tattoo artist. And so I went, I met him. Somehow I pulled a significant chunk of change out of my butt, like, you know, talked to my dad, like, hey, you're gonna borrow some money, you know, it's kind of for school, you know, and, you know, and we got me some beginning equipment, and, you know, we hashed it out, and we got me started tattooing. And actually, my first career choice, what I wanted to be when I was a real little kid, I wanted to be an astrophysicist.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to be a
sure.
scientist, but I suck at math. And apparently that's a big deal in physics.
Who would have known? So, getting into what started your tattooing career off, what was your first tattoo?
My first tattoo
that you got on you.
On me?
Yep.
Okay, I was 12 or 13 years old, and it's under this mess in here. It said High Life on my arm, all crooked and really fucked up. I did it with a sewing needle and a broken gel pen. Like,
Gel pen?
Yeah, gel pen.
How well did that ink stick?
It stuck, kind of. It turned kind of blue. Like within a year. It looked horrible. It was awful. It was really, really awful. And yeah, it was all downhill from there, man. Like I took quite the interest in it. You know, started making homemade tattoo machines out of like RC motors and guitar strings and everything. And then when I met Rick, the guy that apprenticed me, he was like, listen, stop what you're doing right now because you're just fucking people up. And you're going to learn the right way to do this. And I'm very grateful that I actually got an apprenticeship and went through the proper steps to do it, because, man, that would have been just like a long line of just really messy work output if I had just kept on the road that I was going. And it's to the point now that, like, I get more excited to see the younger generation taking awards. I kind of feel bad for taking awards when there's a bunch of younger artists there. I'm like, oh man, like, this is their time. You know, I've had my time on stage. So I'm kind of more excited to, like, offer my services as a judge, or like seeing how else I can help out in that scene. I think would be more constructive of my time. If I go for something, if I'm gonna compete, I feel like I'm just gonna go for best of show these days.
Okay. What would you say is your most rewarding experience in your career so far?
I'd have to say the competition scene. It's definitely a dual-edged kind of thing, because it's a love-hate relationship. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but it has forced me to get better, definitely. Competing is how a lot of us get really, really high-end clientele, like somebody who's willing to drop 10 grand on a tattoo. You know, that's what they're watching. They're watching, you know, is it an award-winning artist? You know, what is he specializing in? You know, like, seeing your pieces up on stage, they show up to those kind of things, and they pay attention to that kind of stuff on social media. So I would definitely have to say the competition scene, which is also a pain in the butt and a lot of stress, and you know, going up against guys that you just thinking, like, dude, there's no way in a million years I'm gonna beat this guy, you know, like, there's no way possible. But beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You know, you don't know what's running through those judges' heads. And it took me quite a few years. I started competing. I think I started competing in 2010, and it wasn't until 2014 when I took my first awards. So it was a lot of getting my ass kicked by guys who were really, really good. And then once I started figuring out what the judges like, and you know, how to go about it in presentation and the whole 9 yards, and how to present myself as an artist and represent myself as an artist, that I actually started taking some awards and getting some recognition, and, you know, being able to put in it on social media, etc., etc.
How did the name Scurvy Dog come into play? What brought Scurvy Dog to the mind?
Oh, okay.
Was there a list, or was
there was definitely a list, and I don't even remember what was all on the list. I'm sure I actually still have it somewhere, but it was literally on the back of a sketch pad, and it was just name after name after name after name, and I went through, crossed them out, like, and it kind of dawned on me one day that, like, I've always viewed tattoo artists as like the pirates of the 21st century, you know, like we kind of do what we want, and I don't know, like I kind of felt that kinship there between tattoo artists and pirates for some reason. Like, a lot of us cheat on our taxes, and like we just live like straight pirates, you know, just drunk every night, fucking doing whatever we want, and that was kind of the correlation there, if you will. And so I kept thinking, like, okay, if I'm going to do a pirate name, why don't I do a pirate theme? And it kind of all just compiled very easily, actually, once I picked out the name, the Scurvy Dog, and I was like, okay, pirates. We could fill it full of, you know, pirate shit. We can have pirate ships and, you know, cool pirate paintings and all kinds of stuff. And yeah, it just kind of snowballed from there.